As I look around, I see that some of the delegates are younger than I am, and that in your lifetime, the consequences of the decisions that you make today will change the world that you live in. Some of your kids will be alive in 2100. And so what kind of a future, what kind of an earth are you going to bequeath to them? You need to have clearly in your mind that we all share the same air, the same sky, the same atmosphere, the same climate system. So you know that you'll be developing your negotiating positions in these 8-minute negotiating periods. The UN staff will let you know when you have 1 minute left. Make sure that you have your negotiating positions written out and passed through your emissaries to Dr. Siegel out here at front. Then she will run the models. You'll see the results within seconds, and then we'll enter into another round of negotiations. So the first session now begins.
We let our professor know which region of the world we felt most connected with, and then he actually ended up putting us in groups that were sort of the opposite of what we had initially said.
Even though we might not be responsible for the emissions, we have to think that we are the most vulnerable nations in the world to be affected by climate change. So,
yeah, it's dog eat dog here. I think downing it to 60, and then in round 2 we can renegotiate and give more with provisions. Yeah, I mean, we've emitted 74% of cumulative emissions so far, but we didn't fully understand the consequences, and therefore we can't necessarily be held accountable. For sure. For that, especially if you I
didn't realize that developed countries were going to have a nice table with cinnamon rolls and iced tea or whatever. We were going to be sitting on the floor without chairs, trying to do our negotiations. I'm pretty sure that's not how it's going to be in Copenhagen.
Everyone did independent research over the weekend to learn about the country or region they were representing.
This might be our window of opportunity over the next 5 to 10 years to really be proactive and make really aggressive changes while our populations are open to change.
We had a discussion board going online, which was really helpful to be able to come into the first negotiation having talked with our teammates.
Okay, our question is, we were told that we would be shown what percentage of land we have available for reforestation. Could you give us those figures?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Thank you. We are developing nations.
Is it coming from us? Do we want everybody else to be paying, or is it okay that we sort of pay with the expectation of getting money back? You see what I mean?
The focus of the course so far has been on systems thinking. It has a lot to do with how systems respond to feedback and how to change systems. And while we've had some case studies, it's been hard to sort of apply it to real-world issues. And I think the negotiations really helped understand a very real context for what we've been learning.
In just a moment, we'll see the consequences of your negotiating positions, and you may be wanting to think about the possibility of striking a deal after you see how this plays out.
Keep this in mind, emissaries, why don't you go to the different groups and we can make one of those written statements about, hey, this is why we feel justified lowering our % contribution, and ask them to maybe chip in a little more.
Okay, if we can have the attention of the delegates. Dr. Siegel will comment on the outputs.
So the developed countries said that they were going to stop growing in 2012 and start reducing in 2020 at a rate of 2% per year. So
I think the C-ROADS model is definitely based very strongly on what we've been learning about. So in that sense, I feel like I knew where the model was coming from and where the information was coming from, and that helped make it more realistic for me.
The larger developing countries continued to grow until 2050 at their business as usual or reference scenario, and then level off, and 10 years later start to decline at an annual rate of 2%.
You can't tiptoe around the issue. You have to tackle it head on with a magnitude we haven't even thought of yet. I realized how hard it is to get down to these numbers. I mean, despite making concessions that I think were unrealistic on the part of some of these countries, I think it does make you realize just how aggressive a stance these countries need to take.
So how much is the sea level rise in this case?
Sea level rise is 720 millimeters. That is from the reference is 880.
So 880 millimeters sea level rise if we did not do any controls.
I represented the island nations. Throughout my research, I was blown away because our issues aren't deforestation, really. Our carbon emissions per capita is nothing. We make no money. And I felt so helpless throughout the entire negotiations.
Okay, this is the beginning of round 2.
We looked at how, cutting emissions to zero right away, sea level would still rise.
Let's tell them we'll kick in 10% more to the global fund if they decrease their timeline for when they reduce. Okay, so let's write up something.
Well, maybe we don't do a deal yet, and we just go over and talk to them about it.
I think we need to do something now.
We understand the developing countries over there, they've already had it good. They've already had like 150 years of industrialization. So, we said we could continue to industrialize till 2035.
Yeah, coming from the developing B countries, you need to at least match that or be better than that.
Can I talk for 1 second? I still understand your guys' position, but my position is, in our groups, is that our countries, we have half of our populations that are under the poverty line. They're not getting water. They're not getting...
You don't have to talk to us about being under the poverty line.
So we're concerned about our people. So if we can't meet those people's needs, then we can't reduce our emissions.
Okay, John, could you speak with her?
Sure. Thank you. This number.
Are you from the developed countries?
Yeah.
Okay. I think when our emissaries come back, we may be able to talk more about that.
It's also in our best interest, though, to reduce these carbon levels because a lot of, as less developed countries, a lot of us lie very low at sea level.
2030 is too early. Okay. Yeah. Can we reach a compromise 2035? 2035? 2030.
They wanted to do us up to 80, so they do 2040, and I said no. And so they said they'll do that. They'll level off in 2040, start decline in 2055, if we up to 70.
No way.
We have to model that first.
Let's just do that and see what it does to the model, and we can always go back.
I think so.
Yeah, that's 3.
Okay. What? In order to meet that goal within 10 years.
Sitting on the floor in the simulation really put it all in perspective.
So maybe as an emissary, knowing what our group is willing to sacrifice, we could say
it was humbling to know that I was caring a lot about Latin America and my region, but the people representing, say, highly developed countries just would not give us the time of day. It's come on, guys. But that might actually be how it is in the world.
Just say, all right, now you get back.
That's where we are. Temperature is 2.4 degrees, sea level rise is 690.
Okay, we're ready now to see the results of your second negotiating position.
The developed countries committed to stopping at 2012 and reducing in 2020 like before.
For me, the most effective part of it was realizing how quickly concerns for the actual environment are put aside in favor of concerns over your own national interests, and how difficult it is to make those sort of align with everyone else.
Okay, let's begin our final round of negotiations.
I certainly understood this issue very well before the Sea Roads exercise, but I don't think I understood the magnitude.
To get that solved.
Wait, could we actually get emissaries from both groups, or is that just unheard of in the world of politics?
Let's do it.
Let's break the rules. Wait, guys, could we actually get emissaries from both groups over here?
You see how a huge change in a country's future output could not really do that much. It might not put the sea level up that high, but it might, and who are we to risk that?
I don't know, what do you guys think?
So, are you developed?
Yeah, we're developing. We're developing.
Developed.
Yeah.
All right, so that was yours. If we could go down to 2035.
The final negotiations got pretty heated. Everyone kind of really got into their own region's interests, which is really interesting to see.
And then we could also, and then
How
that's
are you going to do that with such a large population? When are you going to hopefully we'll have that money from that many?
Well, hopefully that's what the global fund is for, and that's actually what we would ask from the developed nations, is that you actually make up the rest of the developed fund, seeing as how our GDPs are inconsequential compared to yours.
What about the rapidly developing countries? Because right now we're covering 70% of the fund, and the economies of China and India are
predicted to explode.
They're bigger, but our main argument for that is that 74% of the carbon in the atmosphere at this time is from developed countries.
Would it make sense?
We're gonna surpass the emissions, but it's gonna take a long time for us to surpass their cumulative emissions.
We're all looking.
We feel that 70% is admitting that we have played a role in
which would
creating
be
this
good
problem,
to do.
but that as of now we have we're really curbing our emissions and
throwing billions of dollars at this problem.
And we'll start to
How about 2030 and 2%? Yeah.
It's still that's
I think what Chase said is extremely reasonable, which is if the peak... It was interesting to gain a new perspective. I did a lot of research on my own over the weekend, sort of looking into China's position, which helped me be more active in the talks, which was cool. Which is if the peak is earlier, then there's going to be less inefficient slack in the system, so it'll be harder to drop it 3% a year. Yes.
So are we doing 2032 and then 2050?
Yeah. Have they agreed on that?
I don't know that the developed have agreed on that one.
Yeah.
If we're upping our contribution to the fund here, we would wonder if you would be willing to consider increasing your annual percent in decline and CO2 emissions from 3% to...
Are you going to cover the rest of it?
I will report back.
You guys can drive 10 miles less a week. It's a lot easier than we can not cook dinner every day.
They say deforestation?
5. We said 75, and I really don't know if we can do that, but 2035, 4, 2035.
Okay, I'd like to call on the chairs of each group to make a 1-minute statement.
Rapidly developing nations, and we decided that we would say that we're going to give up 80%, or be responsible for 80% of the global fund, because they feel like they can't get above the poverty line and reduce their emissions by a certain number. But we're pessimistic that this is going to pass in Congress, so we're worried that you guys are negotiating too hard and playing the victim too hard, and we think that the rapidly developing nations should be able to make a bigger commitment, and we don't think that the numbers that they have submitted are good enough, but we'll run the simulation and see what happens.
The less developed nations are deeply concerned with these outcomes, especially since most of our countries will be the most affected by climate changes, especially our small island nations and other low-lying coastal countries. We really are such a small percentage, and we can only offer so much land to afforestation that we really need help from you guys. And our ability to develop sustainably, which is our wish, is deeply tied to the aid that we can receive.
So for rapidly developing nations, our economy and poverty are our biggest issues that hinder us from wanting to cap off our emissions as early as possible, and that is why we requested the developed nations to put in more in the global fund, which will turn not just into aid for needy countries in the case of a disaster, but also to open up technologies for us so that we may be able to pursue greener means of meeting our economic needs. And we just need the cooperation of the more developed nations to help us to keep to that.
Let's see the final results.
So we are much closer to our goal of 2 degrees than we were when we started out. The reference scenario, if we continue on the trajectory without any action to reduce it. So we are about 86% of the way where we have to be, but we're not there yet. And sea level rise, we have a 668 millimeter rise. That's still pretty disastrous for the low-lying nations. The real impact that we have on sea level rise is realized down the road beyond 2100. We haven't calibrated the model out till then, but when we run it out till then, we get about a 19-foot increase if we continue on the business as usual trajectory versus a 2-foot increase if we get down to the 2 degrees Celsius. So I don't want anybody to get frustrated and say, well, what's our point here? Because we really are mitigating disaster.
I'd like to congratulate the delegates of the world because I think you've made extraordinary progress today. And these decisions, of course, have to be ratified by your home governments. And we know that some of you may have a battle to take care of that when you return home. But again, congratulations, and thank you for coming to Copenhagen.